Are you like me and love to make sweet treats for the holidays? It's fun, and I definitely don't keep them all to myself. I love to share. Hey y'all, I'm Valerie, and welcome to my kitchen. In today's video, I'm making 5 candy recipes, so you can go ahead and get started for Christmas. Okay y'all, let's get started. These are orange balls that I found in one of my church cookbooks. Here's the recipe if you want to screenshot it. But they sounded really good and different, so I really wanted to try them. Now, I'm sure you can use butter instead of that margarine, but I wanted to follow the recipe how it was written. So in the bowl of my stand mixer, I added 1 stick of margarine. And it's better if it's a little on the softer side, so I went ahead and cut mine up into pieces to soften up quicker. Mix that. Now I'm adding in an 11-ounce box of Vanilla Wafers that I crushed in my food processor into fine crumbs. Then you're going to add in 6 ounces of thawed orange juice concentrate, and I find this in the frozen section in my grocery store. Now you're going to add in 1.5 cups of chopped pecans, and I measured mine after I chopped them. Now you're going to mix that together and then slowly add in powdered sugar. The recipe called for 1 box, and I think that's about 3.5 to 4 cups of powdered sugar, so you'll want to add, I think I did 3.5 cups, but if your dough is still a little too sticky, you can go ahead and add in that rest of that 1/2 cup. By the way, some orange zest would be awesome in here too. And if you want to chill this at this point to make them easier to roll, you can, but I didn't feel like I needed to. And go ahead and grab you a piece of that mixture and squeeze it together, just to make sure it's going to hold its shape. And I love these because we're not going to dip them in chocolate, we're going to roll them in coconut. If you're not a fan of coconut, you could also roll them in chopped pecans, or you could even ground up some more vanilla wafers and roll them in that. And I mean, I'm sure they'd be good dipped in chocolate too, so don't get me wrong about that. And these definitely don't have to be perfect, just get a good little coating of coconut on there. I just placed mine on a parchment paper lined baking sheet, and I popped them in the refrigerator to chill until I was ready to serve them. And feel free to make these as big or as small as you like them. What is your favorite Christmas candy? I have way too many favorites, so I don't think I can pick just one. These were so good, and they weren't overwhelmingly orange flavored. I thought they were just right, but if you want a stronger orange flavor, feel free to add that zest in. And I'm not quite sure how these would be if you left the pecans out. They would still be okay, but I think that's what I liked about them the most, that crunch from the pecans. They were so good, and I really hope you give them a try. This is about the easiest butterscotch fudge that I have ever made. I went ahead and lined an 8 by 8 inch baking dish with foil, and I left some of that hanging over the sides, that way I can lift the fudge out when it's done. In a medium-sized bowl, you're going to add 2 of the 11-ounce packages of butterscotch chips. After you get those in there, you're going to add 1 can of sweetened condensed milk. And if you want to melt this over a double boiler, you can, but I'm just popping it in the refrigerator, I'm going to pop it in the microwave and melt it in 30-second intervals until it's completely melted. And stir it really good in between, because sometimes it won't look like it's completely melted, but after you stir it, it is. Now you're just going to pour it into that baking dish and smooth it out on top, and that's about it. I started out using my spatula, but then found it a whole lot easier just to use that offset spatula. And if you wanted to, you could also try laying down or laying over a piece of saran wrap maybe, and rub your hands over the top to smooth it out that way. But be careful, this is still hot. And it does not have to be perfect. That offset spatula worked out just fine. I put them in the refrigerator to chill for a couple hours, and then I cut them into tiny bite-sized pieces. And I know they're kind of plain looking. You can add sprinkles if you wanted to, or you could even drizzle over some white chocolate. but these were delicious. And it's set up really good. And I know this is not real homemade butterscotch fudge, but 2 ingredients and they taste this good, I'm not complaining. This is a loaded Crockpot candy, and it's a little different than the version you're probably used to. So to the bottom of that slow cooker, you're going to add 2 tablespoons of butter, an 11-ounce bag of semi-sweet chocolate chips, a bag of the Reese's peanut butter chips, and a bag of the dark chocolate chips. Now you're going to add in 1 pound of almond bark, which is 8 of these little squares in this package. And it's going to melt a whole lot faster if you break them up. Now you're going to cover it, and the recipe said to cook it on high for 30 minutes, but my crock pot gets a little bit on the hotter side. So I ended up just setting it to cook on low for 2 hours, and then I just checked it after about an hour. It didn't need the full 2 hours, so make sure you check it. So this was after 1 hour. I gave it a really good stir, and I let it go for about maybe 10 or 15 more minutes. And when everything is completely melted, now it's time to add in all the fun stuff. And you can really make this your own and change up the add-ins in here and just be creative. But here's what I did. I added a jar of roasted salted peanuts, 1.5 cups of crushed pretzels, and 1.5 cups of crushed rigid potato chips. I used a couple of those small bags just because that's what I had on hand. Now you're going to stir it until everything is completely covered in that chocolate. And I think next time it could have used a tiny bit more potato chips. Something about that salty and sweet combo is perfect. Now you're going to dollop spoonfuls of that mixture onto a parchment paper lined or silicone lined baking sheet. And if you want to add sprinkles, I suggest doing it pretty quickly, just before that chocolate has a chance to set up. And I just let mine sit out on the counter until they were completely set. If you're impatient though, I understand. Just pop them in the refrigerator until they're ready. They do set up a little quicker that way. These were delicious. They were so good. And like I said, I would definitely add a few more potato chips next time. But that potato chip, pretzel, peanut combination was perfect. And these are good for any time of the year, so you can change up the sprinkles and make it fit any holiday. And this is one of those recipes, if you're looking for something simple, this is it. I came across this recipe. They were called moon pies, but I think the name Marshmallow Ritz kind of suits them better. To a large bowl, you're going to add 1 stick of softened butter. I accidentally melted mine. Yes, I did. Sorry about that. You're also going to add 1 cup of marshmallow fluff and 1 cup of powdered sugar and a teaspoon of vanilla. Now mix that until it's completely smooth. Now I doubled this recipe because it said that it only made 12 and I was wanting more than that. But me doubling this recipe, I should have ended up with 24, but I ended up with 48. I'm not complaining though, they all got gone. So here I'm just taking that marshmallow mixture and putting it in a piping bag. I set that aside, and then you're going to grab a sheet pan. I ended up needing 2 sheet pans. And I laid down 24 Ritz crackers on each of those 2 sheet pans. Now you're going to grab the piping bag with that marshmallow mixture, and you're just going to, I did snip the tip of that piping bag off, and you're just going to put maybe a teaspoon and a half on each Ritz cracker. Now when we make a sandwich with them, you want that marshmallow mixture to spread out all the way to the edges. And here's the other sheet pan full. I told y'all it made a lot. So now you're going to need 48 more Ritz crackers, and just place a Ritz cracker on the top of each marshmallow covered Ritz. I did want to show you, I ran out of the box of Ritz halfway through, but I did have some great value Ritz which I used, and they were a lot more crumbly. They taste good, but they seem to fall apart easier. I put those in the freezer and let them chill for about 30 minutes, and then I was ready to dip them. I ended up using 12 ounces of this Vanilla Almond Bark. But you could also dip these in the chocolate almond bark. I'm sure that would be really good too. And these are really easy to dip. You just drop them in that chocolate, spoon the chocolate on top, and then lift them out. And I did let as much of that chocolate drip off as I could before I put them on the baking sheet. And I'm going to keep it real with you for a minute. These were very good, but I really think you could get by with just taking some of that marshmallow fluff and spreading it in between two of those Ritz crackers. And I didn't do sprinkles this time, but I did cover them with gold, red, and some white sanding sugar. But you can decorate them however you like. Chocolate covered Ritz crackers are also good with peanut butter in the middle or even Nutella. If you've tried the peanut butter ones, you know. Oh, and one of my favorite Christmas candies is melt down a package of the Andes Mints and just dip single Ritz crackers in that Andes Mint chocolate. So good. But we all love these Marshmallow Ritz. I'm telling you, they were gone in no time. And I really tried to get a shot of the insides of these for you, but maybe because it was all that white, it just did not want to focus. And a little heads up, these were sweet but delicious. These Nutter Butter Truffles are a hit every single time I make them. I've got a 16-ounce package of the Great Value Nutter Butter cookies here, and I put those in my food processor and blended them into fine crumbs. You put the whole cookie in there and blend it up. I set them aside for just a minute, and in a large bowl, I added 8 ounces of softened cream cheese. To that, I added 1/4 cup of creamy peanut butter, but I'm sure you could also use crunchy if you prefer, and 1/4 cup of powdered sugar. Now you're going to use an electric mixer or a stand mixer and mix it until it's smooth. It's just easier to mix up if you mix this until combined before you add the cookies. Now you're going to add in those Nutter Butter cookie crumbs. And to make it easier to mix, I added half and then mixed and then added the other half. And then you're going to mix it again, and you're going to mix it until everything is well combined. Have y'all had the Oreo truffles like this? They are really good, but my family prefers these peanut butter ones. Okay, now we got our mixture ready here, and if you feel like you need to place it in the refrigerator to chill to make it easier to roll, you can, but I didn't feel like I needed to do that. And to make it easier on myself, I'm just using a cookie scoop. This is like a 1.5 tablespoon size cookie scoop. That way they all end up the same size. And you're just going to make a ball and roll it in your hands until it's completely smooth. And then continue until you've used up all of that peanut butter mixture. Now I did place these in the freezer to set up while I melted the chocolate. And you can use vanilla or the chocolate almond bark to dip these in, but I'm using vanilla. You'll need about 10 or so ounces of it. And I'm just using the plastic fork method here. I just broke off the 3 prongs and left 1. And you're just going to stick that fork in a truffle and then roll it around in some chocolate and then place it back on the baking sheet. And then I dip my fork back in chocolate and back onto the top of that truffle just to cover up that little hole. And since I used the whole package of peanut butter cookies in that truffle mixture, I meant to reserve a couple to crush up and sprinkle over the top when these were done, but I went digging through my pantry and found some roasted peanuts, which they ended up working out perfect. I just chopped those up really good and sprinkled them over the top. Now you do want to make sure you add your toppings or sprinkles or whatever you add on top pretty quickly. You want to add those before the chocolate has a chance to set up. But that crunch from the peanuts went perfect on these. And I'm sure you could even add crushed peanuts to the inside or do like crunchy peanut butter instead of creamy. These are absolutely delicious. And like I said, we are Nutter Butter fans around here, so we love them. And that makes me curious. You'll have to let me know below, what is your favorite cookie? Kind of like your favorite store-bought cookie. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe down below for more easy recipes, and I will see you in the next one.